just give us very briefly what that particular night of his resignation felt like to you. Elizabeth?
This is the night that he announced he was going to resign.
The night he announced he was resigning.
He's going to resign, and it was the next day that was truly bizarre, when he had a goodbye farewell speech to his staff. And it was pretty mawkish and kind of embarrassing, and he was reading from Teddy Roosevelt's memoirs. He associated with Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena, and he never gave up, and this sort of thing. Teddy Roosevelt was this sickly boy who became this big, strong figure, and Nixon had been a sickly boy, and I leave the rest to you. He was talking, he read from Teddy Roosevelt about when my dear wife died, I mean, what that was about. It was very weird. Now, I'd learned in working on this version of the book that at the same time that was going on, he had a military aide in there stealing papers that supposedly had signed over to the archives, but he wanted to write his memoirs, called RN, like TR, and so this guy was loading these documents into trucks and sending them out to San Clemente. They'd been doing it for a while, but then finally a Ford person caught them and said, you can't keep doing that. So it was a very strange event. And then they went out to the helicopter, and who can forget that, you know, it's the iconic scene of our era.
Okay. Carl, the night of the resignation?
Bob and I were in the newsroom. Catherine Graham, the publisher of the Post, had come downstairs from her office. Ben Bradley, the editor of the paper. There were surprisingly few people in the newsroom because we knew what was coming. And Catherine actually said to the group of us, no gloating. And
how'd that work out?
And there was no need, because my feeling was one of absolute total awe that it had come to this, that finally the country was going to be spared him in office, and also recognition of the fact that those in the room had some real role in what was happening. But awe, total awe, and the fact that the system had worked.
Bob?
I was sitting on the floor of Howard Simon's office. He was the managing editor, watching the speech, and this was before the Bezos era. It was the Graham era. And so they handed out sandwiches that night, and I know, I remember the very bad bologna sandwich that I was sitting there eating, and not only did Catherine Graham issue the no gloating rule, but Ben Bradley did, and he was, kind of going around the newsroom slowly, not showing any emotion, and Ben and I went to the elevator because we were going to go down and get something to eat, and the elevator opens, and there's Sergeant Shriver, who is somehow broken into the Post security system. And it's Shriver was head of the Peace Corps in the Kennedy era, married to one of the Kennedys, very much a Kennedy person. He sees Ben and he goes, "Yay!"
Blew the cover.
And Ben is just kind of, trying to pretend, and Shriver just wouldn't stop, and he just said, "Oh, I had to be here this night with you." And I think it kept, the moment was one of, what's happening here, what does it mean, and that was 40 years ago, and to a certain extent, Carl and I have spent those 40 years, Elizabeth too, what was Watergate, what does it mean, what is its ultimate impact, and what's so fascinating is there are always more and more tapes that come out. In fact, I think aren't there 800 hours of tapes that the Nixon Library is going to release in a month or so? Is that right?
There's about 800 that they have no plans to release, but
Well,
We'll
somebody
be
told me
trying.
they're going to be available, and, you know, so we'll be back with the headphones.
If they
And-
are, I'll be.
And
The headphones never go away.
there are always more tapes, and they never fail to astonish and revolt in their